Love is in the air. It's Valentine's season. But what does that mean astrologically? Honestly, this is one of the trickier astrological holidays to unpack. Most astrologers will tell you that Aquarius, the zodiac sign ruling the time in which Valentine's Day falls, isn't exactly the lover of the zodiac. It's not the sign in which you think of the lover or the romantic. That's not to say Aquarians can't be lovers. Of course they can. Indeed they are. We're all lovers in our own way. But traditionally, Aquarius isn't necessarily associated with romance, passion, or the lovey-dovey energy we usually connect with Valentine's Day. So today, on the Power of Ideas, Astrology of Holidays edition, I'm challenging that notion. I'm here to tell you I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to investigate and ask the question, is that not true? Is Valentine's Day not in the right zodiac season? And my thesis, my question, the thing that I'm investigating is that astrology moves in mysterious ways. If astrology is woven into the very fabric of our world, of our cosmic universe, then its themes should reveal themselves in ways that make sense. That's the hypothesis that I'm taking. So, if astrology is woven into the fabric of our universe and world, when things are the way they are, we have to assume that they're that way for an astrological reason. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe it seems contradictory. Can't say that word well at first glance, but what if it's not? What if Valentine's Day is exactly where it's supposed to be? I know. This sounds a little wishy-washy, so let me sharpen the point. Valentine's Day happens during Aquarius season for a reason. That's my hill. I'm not necessarily willing to die on it, but that's the hill that I'm on today. So just like Christmas, right? Listen to the last Astrology of Holidays episode where I talk about the way in which Capricorns are considered cold and stoic. It doesn't seem to necessarily align with that zodiac sign, Christmas and Capricorn. Capricorns aren't exactly known for their jolly nature, yet if you really think about it, and I did for that episode, Christmas is about love through gift giving, a material expression of care and love. And what sign understands the value of material success and tangible offerings more than Capricorn? Hint, nobody. So back to our central question. How is love an Aquarian trait? Why does the holiday of romance fall under a sign known for logic, aloofness, detachment, and even a little bit of emotional distance? Aquarians often seem enigmatic to their lovers, not necessarily sentimental, not overly expressive, often aloof. They think on a grand scale about ideas, about humanity, and what's good for all of us. And if you were paying close attention, you just heard my answer. Aquarius is about collective love. Love beyond the individual. Love as an ideal. Love as a revolution. Is that too much? Happy to disagree. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Power of Ideas. Let's talk about love in all its complexity. That's really what I want to talk about today. Love often gets reduced down to something simple, something like just one-on-one relationships, but it's not that, right? We know that love is a big, complicated, often messy conversation about, in many cases, what it means to be human. And so that's what I want to dive into in this episode. So, How am I going to start this? Well, I'm going to start this out being a little bit controversial. Cannot lie. In a recent episode of the Astrology podcast, arguably the most listened to and widely cited astrology podcast, co-host Austin Kopic made an argument that got me thinking. Now, for full transparency, I have a ton of respect for Austin. He's been studying astrology for longer than I have, and he is most certainly better at astrology than I am. He is an expert, and I am not trying to minimize his expertise at all. In fact, I think that it takes a certain sort of hubris, which I kind of have at this place, to do what I'm about to do, but I don't want to say that he's necessarily wrong. I just want to offer a counter argument to an argument that he made on the Astrology podcast that I thought, well, that's interesting, and I don't know if I agree. So I'm kind of taking a stand, but I'm also saying he's probably much better at astrology than I am. Hopefully that's fair. So Austin argued that Valentine's Day is poorly placed in Aquarius season, that it would make more sense if it fell under Taurus, Libra, or Pisces. The logic is this. Venus rules Taurus and Libra, two signs deeply associated with romance, attraction, and relationships. Venus is exalted in Pisces, a sign known for dreamy, transcendent, big love, the kind of love that consumes you. You fall into love head first when you are in a Piscean type of love. So let's take a listen to the clip just so I don't poorly straw man Austin's words.
Yeah, I mean, I consider Valentine's Day to be a supremely poorly elected holiday. You know, I've lobbied quietly for years to get it moved to a more naturally Venusian and celebratory date.
To like Taurus season or Libra season?
Well, my first thought was move it to the day every year that the sun occupies Venus's degree of maximum exaltation. But then I found out that that's St. Patrick's Day. And we already have a holiday where you're supposed to have an awesome time and wear green, which is Venus's color, and kiss random people, which is a Venus thing.
So just to summarize briefly, Austin is essentially saying that Valentine's Day, in his words, supremely poorly placed holiday. And he thought that a better day would be in Pisces season, specifically around March 17th when Venus is at its maximum exaltation. So that's his counter narrative. Chris also said, well, were you thinking about sometime during Taurus and Libra season? And so that's the place where I'm coming from. I'm saying I understand those arguments, but let me give a counter narrative to why, in fact, Valentine's Day is perfectly placed. And so I want to go through these one by one. And I actually already started to with Pisces, but let's talk about now Taurus and Libra and let that conversation unfold. Taurus loves stability and comfort in relationships, right? You fall into love and then you have found your person, and that creates a kind of stability that Taurus people find really, really wonderful. It's loving because it's stable and it's comfortable, and we know each other at a very deep and unique level. Libra craves harmony, beauty, and adoration. They want to adore others and be adored. They also like to be seen as graceful in social situations. They like beauty, so they like things that are beautiful. They like people that are beautiful. They often want to be seen as beautiful, and that can take a variety of different forms, but that's certainly a Venusian take. So that makes sense, right? We have Taurus season, we have Libra season, right? And then Pisces likes to kind of surrender to love as an ideal. It's very utopian and visionary. They want to see romance. If there's one sign that we can say truly falls into love, stumbles awkwardly, losing its footing, and then becomes enmeshed in love, it is Pisces. specifically Venus in Pisces. All of these placements, because of the things that I just explained, make perfect sense for Valentine's Day, right? Love is central to these things in different ways, but all related to love. But here's where I challenge that thinking, where I say, let's consider Aquarius. Love as a choice, okay? I know that sounds perhaps a little bit silly, but what if we take one of the most intellectual powerhouses of, in my opinion, the last 150 years? So you don't have to take my word for it. Take the word of Bell Hooks. She is, without question, my singular, probably, intellectual hero. Bell Hooks wrote a book called All About Love. In it, she defines love in a way that reframes how we might think about romance, relationships, and human connection. She says, love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Further, love is as love does. Love is an act of will, namely, both an intention and an action. And just so it's clear I'm not making it up, here is an excerpt from a YouTuber that I found talking about Bell Hooks and her repopularity after her past, in which All About Love, the book that I'm talking about, became a bestseller after many, many years of its publication. And it's an extended clip, so stick with me here. I just think it's important to put someone else's words into the conversation to give a new flair to this thing. So it's Hooks's words in the context of this content creator on YouTube.
In chapter 1, named Clarity, Give Love Words, Bell Hooks says, in order to talk about love, we need a clear definition. Love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Love is as love does. Love is an act of will, intention, and an action. Will implies choice. We do not have to love, we choose to love. We do not have to love, we choose to love. First of all, bars. Second of all, when you put it like that, it doesn't seem so complicated. Suddenly, love seems very, okay, I'm not gonna say easy, but it's less complicated. And it's actually also something my grandma used to tell me when I was growing up. She was like, of course, love is a feeling, but it's also something you choose to do every single day. And I think it never clicked because it sounded so unromantic, and it sounded like nothing you see in the movies as a kid growing up. For a very long time as a young girl, to me, romance was love and love was romance. But Bell Hooks basically says in this book, she's like, no, romance is a way of expressing love, but it's not love in its broadest sense. And maybe I'm telling you something right now and you're like, girl, duh, of course, how didn't you know? I don't know, maybe I'm slow. Listen, you don't have to agree with the definition, but I think why I like it is because it makes love into something active instead of something passive. Love is something you choose, it's something you do, you have to work on it, you have to feed it, you have to nurture it if you want it to grow. Also gives you a sense of responsibility.
Are you still there? I know that was long. The thing that I want to take from that, and the reason that I extended the clip, and I actually I was like, I'm gonna do the short version, and then I was like, no, actually what's really interesting about this is that if you read All About Love by Bell Hooks, what you will read is the way in which the conversation shifts between conversations about lovers and about friendship, but also about the world. Love is not just one thing. It is not just a romantic thing that happens between two people. It is much, much more than that. And Hooks is talking about it in that way. So her definition is more than just about romantic love. And that extended clip, you can kind of feel, and I imagine, and I would ask you to maybe go back and replay it and think to yourself, as she is talking about love, if you found your mind instinctively reverting back to thinking about love as she said it over and over in a way that was only geared to thinking about ex-lovers or potential future lovers or something like that. because the book, even though it does talk about lovers, is actually about much more than that. And that is important when we talk about the definition of love. Specifically, we do not have to love, we choose to love. This definition radically shifts the way we can understand love. It isn't something that happens to us necessarily. It's something we actively engage in. We don't fall in love. We choose love. It's a decision, an act, an ongoing commitment. And that is the essence of Aquarius. Now, I'm not saying, importantly, that you cannot fall into love. Sometimes love happens. Certainly. What I'm saying is choosing to do something implies a logical series of understanding, of knowing that you then deploy in a way that is based in a kind of logic. And logic, my friends, is very, very Aquarian. So I want to reframe love. I want to think of it in different ways than the fairy tale, right? We often talk about love or critique love in its Disney form, but then we continue to engage in the discourse around love in ways that's just a reperpetuation of the Disney form of love. What do I mean? In modern culture, we tend to think of love as something cosmic, faded, even magical. We, like I've said several times already, fall into love as if it's out of our hands. It's written in the stars. Funny enough. Even skeptics who dismiss astrology, this is something that I've experienced multiple times. Anti-astrology people, they will embrace the idea that love is a force bigger than us, bigger than them, something beyond logic or reason. It's very funny to me personally when I am confronted by someone who is anti-astrology because it is quote unquote irrational. What I often do is create a counter argument that is a little bit of a trap. I talk about love. And when I talk about love, there's a whole different set of understandings that is emergent in that conversation, right? Because it's a conversation about love as something we fall into that happens to us versus love as a choice. So if love is a choice, as Bell Hooks argues, then it requires thoughtfulness, deliberation, and intention. That's a very different narrative than the fantasy of love as grand, intoxicating, and something that overtakes us. But this version of love, the one we actively build, sustain, and extend beyond just our personal relationships, the one which we choose, is precisely what Aquarian season is about. Today's episode of TPOI is brought to you by what else? Love. But I'm not talking about the love that I'm talking about in this episode. I'm talking about the song Love by Nat King Cole. Now, some of you might be thinking to yourself already, because you've heard the song, you know the song, and you say, Ian, that song is actually evidence against your argument. But you know what? We don't have to do logic all the time. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. That song is just so great. In fact, one of the reasons why I love this song so much, not because it's just such a classic, but because when I was younger and I was falling in love, I was falling into love with hip hop, with rap music, sometimes I would fall in love with another song that was so far outside of the realm of hip hop that I didn't exactly understand why I liked it. So I would only be listening to hip hop, and then I would find one song and I would obsessively listen to that song. There's a couple of songs that I can think of off the top of my head, but the one that really stands out is Love by Nat King Cole. I had a whole, I think, summer where I was like walking around and it was playing in my headphones. And you would think that if you looked at this, 14, 15, 16-year-old kid with a do-rag on and one pant leg up, yeah, I did that. and you said, oh, he must be listening to The Chronic, or he must be listening to Nas's Illmatic, or he must be listening to Exhibit, or some other kind of rap music, some sort of gangster rap. Nope. I was listening to Nat King Cole's Love. And it doesn't get much better than that. Okay, back to the show. But still, why does Valentine's Day belong in Aquarius season? Most astrologers will tell you that at the heart of the Aquarian archetype is a love for humanity. Not just a love for one person, but a love for the social concept of humanity. Love that extends beyond the individual to something much greater. It's often framed in a different kind of way. So for instance, there's a very famous ancient astrologer named Venusian Valens, and I read a thing a long time ago in which he said Aquarians are the haters of the family. Now I thought that was a really interesting choice of words. And the reason why it was so interesting is because what Aquarians are doing in their quote unquote hate of the family is they're asking a question about why we choose family over the greater humanity. Now, perhaps many scientists, for instance, will say something about, well, it's related to biology. We protect the kin that is closest to us. But often those closest to us can be the ones that traumatize us the most. So then we start having to make choices about the reason why we decide to love our family over the people that might treat us better, that might love us better. And it's possible that people that we don't even know treat us better than our family does. And so I don't know if I think that Aquarians are the haters of family. What they are doing is challenging the notion that family, this thing that we did not choose, that we were born into, is perhaps the thing that we need to remain loyal to. That's an important distinction. So Aquarians aren't necessarily about romantic intimacy. Okay. They're not about romantic intimacy, at least in the traditional sense. They don't seek love for one person in the way that Taurus does, or desire adoration and give adoration from a select few like Libras. They don't dream of the one great love like Pisces. Instead, they ask a bigger question. Why do we limit love to just one person? Now, I'm not saying free love for everybody. Calm down. What I'm saying is, what would it look like if we structured society so that everyone felt love everywhere from everyone? This is the radical, idealistic, deeply humanitarian love of Aquarius. And isn't that exactly what Valentine's Day is? Am I wrong? Valentine's Day isn't just about romantic relationships. It's about love in all forms. Indeed, when Valentine's Day comes upon us, comes around, love is literally everywhere. Love is in the air. It is happening all around us. Valentine's Day is not just about romantic relationships. It's about love in all forms. Look around during Aquarius season as it shows up over the next week, 2 weeks. Here, I'm going to remind us of the rule that I actually talked about in the previous Astrology of Holidays episode, where I talked about when I'm thinking about this, I'm actually thinking about what the sign and the planet looks like as it kind of conjuncts Venus in a visible way, right? And so, for instance, if you were having a Jupiter-Venus conjunction, it's very likely, especially if it was happening in somewhere like the 10th house, that maybe you were falling in love and finding love with, a specific partner, but it's also possible that you started to feel an overwhelming sense of love for everyone. Like you started to have a larger appreciation for everyone in your life, from your coworkers to your family members to your partners to even people on the street. Maybe you have a really nice interaction with someone at the grocery store, or you have a really sweet conversation with somebody at the airport, and suddenly you have this really grand, overwhelming appreciation about humanity in a way that is absolutely disconnected from just a romantic relationship. And maybe you take that into your romantic relationship. But the point here is that it would be a moment where love was being, revealed to you in really larger ways. And that's what I think happens with Valentine's Day. The world is asking you to think about love in the air in all of the ways, not just in the context of romantic love. So think about that conjunction. Think about Jupiter and Venus in a visible place, if you know. Love will literally be in the air. Storefronts and grocery aisles are filled with hearts. People check in on their single friends. We send love notes, chocolates, and gifts, not just to romantic partners, but to parents, friends, teachers, even coworkers. We remember those who have lost loved ones, parents and grandparents who sit alone after their spouses have died. And we say, we need to check in on mom. We need to check in on dad. We need to check in on grandma and grandpa. Why? Because we love them. We don't love them because they're our romantic partners. We love them because it's important that love exists for everyone. We extend gestures of kindness to those who might be feeling alone. Aquarius season asks, how can we love each other better? Everyone, not just one-on-one, but as a collective. In fact, co-producer of the show pointed something out. What has emerged over the last, decade, maybe longer, I don't know. Gia can tell you. But what has emerged from Valentine's Day so that we minimize the importance of Valentine's Day as only this thing that's about romantic love? Galentine's Day. Now that's certainly gendered, right? Maybe we need to have a Fella-times Day thing too, so the guys can get it on in the practice. But what it says is, single people matter too. Friendships matter too. Friendships can be of the most profoundly loving. And that's something that ends up becoming emergent in Valentine's Day too. And Galentine's Day is a perfect example of that. So I want to start to wrap up here with the theory of my case, right? What is my argument specifically? And I'm being a little bit provocative, remember, because I'm challenging something that really impressive and well-respected astrologer Austin Coppock said in the most recent forecast episode of the Astrology podcast. And I think that's important, not to just be provocative and point to a larger personality in the astrology community, but to kind of offer a counter argument and kind of stick up for Valentine's Day in Aquarius season. So, why is Valentine's Day in the heart of Aquarius season perfect? Well, I think it's because if Aquarius is about love of humanity and asks us to consider that maybe the love of one other individual, while perfectly wonderful, takes away often from our love of humanity and our human brothers and sisters and cousins, then that is a bigger question than just romantic love. If Taurus is about the comfort and stability of love and partnership, and Libra is about the harmony of love in social situations, and Pisces is about the big, dreamy love, then Aquarius is about the idea of love and the concept of a love that is universal, that is related to all of us. Human love for everyone. And so despite how unconventional it may seem at first, there is, in my opinion, no better astrological season for Valentine's Day than Aquarius season. Because Valentine's Day isn't just about romance. It's not just about finding that one true person. Indeed, if I may be so bold here at the end, finding one true love, only one person, so that that one person can be your everything, that's a little bit selfish. That's a desire that leaves many, many people out. And sometimes relationships that are only about one other person can harm a lot of other people in your entire life. How many people in your life, for instance, have you experienced where because they become so enmeshed in their personal romantic relationships, harm their social group or their family? They become selfish because they think that they fell into their one true love. That is maybe a Scorpio Venus, but I would say that it's possibly a Taurus Venus or a Pisces Venus too. But the Aquarian Venus sometimes hurts their individual partners because they say, no, I'm not going to necessarily choose you over the social networks that I have, my friendships, and maybe even humanity. They say, instead of going on a date and spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars on a necklace and a dinner and a vacation, they say, what if we go volunteer? What if we invite all our friends over and have a party where we show gratitude to all of them? What if I bring everybody at work cookies and Valentine's Day cards? That's Aquarian love. It's different, but it's a choice. They're thinking about what love means for everyone, not just themselves and one other person. Valentine's Day isn't just about romance. It's about love as a force that binds us all. Love is literally in the air, and that is the most Aquarian idea of all.
L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. E is even more than anyone that you adore can love. Is
The
all
Power of
that I
Ideas
can give.
is brought to you by me, Ian Anthony. It's co-produced by Janela Gutierrez, who this week brought a pretty important thing for me to think about in the Valentine's Day part of the episode, so I really appreciate you, Gia. If you are here now, the best thing that you could do, the most supportive thing that you could do, is actually support the show by sending episodes to friends and telling them, hey, this is pretty cool. You should listen to this. And if you like it, maybe you should send it to a friend. This is how, in the new era of internet, things spread, and you can help by just sharing. We also have a Patreon. We're still working on what our supporters are going to get by supporting our Patreon, but it's coming around, and I'm pretty excited about what we're going to be doing. The song you're hearing in the background right now, it is, of course, Nat King Cole's Love. I do not have permission to use this song, so I don't know if I get in trouble for it. Please don't, corporate lawyers don't attack me. That's all I can say about that. I hope all of you out there are appreciating your life. In an episode like this, it's hard to not say something about gratitude. Nobody really listens to this show. About 100 people is what I got so far. About 100 people, give or take, listen to this show every episode. So I'm grateful for all 100 of you. And maybe by the end of the year, we'll have, I don't know, 200. I would love that. Welcome to the Power of Ideas.